This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everyone. This is Rita.
Rita.
Yes, hello, hi, Penny. Can I just please ask everyone to mute themselves, except the speaker who's talking, so that we won't have the background noises, and it will make it easier for everyone to listen. Thank you so much. The floor is yours, Hero. You can start in minutes, whenever you want. Thank you.
We had a big noise.
It was just
Can you
Farouk.
hear me?
That's all right now.
Okay.
Yes, I'm ready. I'm ready, Roberto. I'm ready.
Just mute yourself.
Okay. Robert, can I start here? No.
Yes.
You're ready.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Their meeting to call order. Thank you to all the participants for joining this IOE Asia Regional Exchange on the COVID-19. I also thank Roberto, your team for materialize this meeting. Last week, IOE launched its first webinar on business action in the times of COVID-19 and a dedicated web page to provide up-to-date information for business and employers organization on how to tackle this global challenge. As you all know, COVID-19 first appeared in January and now has quickly spread 194 countries and claiming over, I don't know how the exact figure, but more than 30,000 lives in just less than 2 months. Asia was the first region to experience the serious impact of the COVID-19 on the health of the population, business operation, trade and economy, as well as our daily lives. The purpose of today's webinar is to provide an opportunity for the web members in the Asian region to exchange information, especially the lessons learned and the challenges from their experience so far. We are especially pleased to have with us 5 speakers to give us short 7 to 10 minute presentation on the situation in their countries. From New Zealand, Mr. Paul McKay, are you with us? Paul, are you with us?
No, he's not with us yet, but I'm trying to connect him. So hopefully he'll join us
From
soon.
Singapore, Mr. Stephen Lee, are you with us?
Yeah, Mr. Hero, I'm here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. From Malaysia, Mr. Daduk Shamsi Bagden.
Yes, Mr. Hero. Good afternoon. I'm around here.
Okay, good afternoon. It's nice to see you again.
Yeah,
From
hi.
Bangladesh, from Farooq Ahmad. I'm sure you are with us. Farooq? Not yet?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. Thank you. And lastly, from Maldives, the newcomer, Mr. Jana Muhammad Ali. Welcome both IOE members. Mr. Janat Muhammad Ali, are you with us?
Okay. I'm here. Can you see me?
Okay.
You can see me, right?
Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you too. Nice meeting you all.
Okay. Okay. In particular, we have asked the speaker to discuss the measures taken by their government, the actions taken by their federation to support members on minimizing the impacts, as well as any suggestions and best practices to share. And the end, we will have time for a tour the table session for participants to ask questions and comments. Also, feel free to write your comments in the chat during the presentation. But I'm not good at dealing with computer, and Robert will help me, and Robert will explain your comments through the webinar. And I don't think it's relevant to explain the Japanese situation in more detailed manner, but I just to explain that current situation in Japan. I told the Penny before starting the meeting, and Tokyo inches toward the lockdown at COVID-19 cases, crime, and national emergency rule. That's why the governors of Tokyo metropolitan areas announced the public stay home during this weekend if it's not essential. Because I just came back from Geneva 1 week ago, and the situation in Tokyo was completely different from those in the Europe. People are walking around, and cars, and so many cars on the street, and while many streets and bars, restaurants, many streets are completely empty. Bars and restaurants and some shops, almost all shops, closed. So, but I realized, and governors in Tokyo metropolitan area also to have realized to and concerned about the explosion of COVID-19 in coming weeks. That's why, and I just explained the current situation. But if we will have a time, I will explain the measure taken by the government of Japan, also to our policy recommendation to the government of Japan. But after I have participated in the webinars conducted by IOE last week and in this week, I have realized our experience, our measures are not be relevant to many friends in Asia. That's my I want to say at this moment. So, and before we hear from the other speakers, I will now pass on to Robert. Robert, floor is yours.
Thank you. I will be very brief because I want basically, again, to thank to all of you. I mean, as Hiro has said, we have been mobilizing our network. I mean, from the very beginning, you have seen us very active. And what we try on one side is to provide information for you as business organizations, for you as employers organizations, but also for your own companies regarding several areas. On one side, safe, of course, safe and health. I mean, and we keep saying health is a top priority, and now we have many dilemmas in many countries, whether you have to restrict strictly the activity and to have drastic measures in many countries, even though that has a cost for the economy and that has a cost for the companies that we represent. But again, that's something that we can discuss. But we also want to provide you in our activities in IOE, globally speaking, actions to minimize the disruption to productivity, strategies for mitigation of financial losses, and also an overview of what different governments around the world are doing to reduce economic stress on business. So we have already set up a very quick platform in our website. I think it's quite substantial in terms of material that you can find there, relevant material, but that's also divided by region. Beyond that, since last Friday, we launched it, well, since last week, we launched a series of digital conference. We try to avoid the word webinars because that goes beyond a webinar. I mean, we just to give you an example, in the last digital conference, we have more than 100 participants, 120, 130. But the idea is to have guest speakers that are relevant and topics that are relevant to anticipate that. The first one was in the 18th of March and was just trying to put in common what is your what is your national experiences. And I want to thank all of you, all of those that are here now participating, who also participate in this in 18th of March. I see Penny and also, of course, Hiro. But the idea was more to gather and to know better what you are doing from different countries. But then last Monday, we started a much more thematic exchange, one on telework policies, because we are now witnessing a situation of forced teleworks and forced telework for all workers. And that has raising a lot of challenges in terms of health and safety, in terms of legal background, in terms of privacy, etc. So we put our expertise there, and we are also going to produce something substantial, qualitative for you in terms of outcome of this meeting. Then on Wednesday, we had a very, very interesting digital exchange on economic advocacy to assure business sustainability. And that was an idea that Scott, I don't know if Scott is joining, gave us. What is important for business right now? And one of the most important elements, useful material and information that you could have is precisely how you can do good economic lobby to avoid massive job losses and to avoid the disruption in the business continuity needs that you have, no? And specifically what works and what doesn't. And then we have a high-level representative from the OECD, but also from ILO. We have the Director of Employment, and you know that the ILO has just launched an estimation of job losses of 24 million in an optimistic scenario. Also, we had some expertise from a German Economic Institute and from other areas of the world. That was quite interesting, and the material is there. But beyond the material, we are going also to produce something which is useful for you in terms of measures. What kind of social measures, what kind of economic measures have proved to be working? I also want to remind you that IOE and ITUC did a joint statement, and I think this joint statement has a main important message, a political message, which says we need to act now, we need to act urgently, and we need to act with a sense of responsibility, also on the worker side. And we know that's important because in many of your organizations, perhaps in many of your contexts, perhaps the attitudes of trade unions is not always very constructive and very positive. So having ITUC joining our joining forces with us with this sense of responsibility was important. And also we want, in these messages, we say we need all the international organizations to work together in an effective manner. You have to do what you have not done by now in an effective manner, which is complement each other. Try to help right now to those companies that are now losing all the profits, all the capacity to continue, and are going to close. So we need, that's an urgency, and you need to provide IMF, World Bank, G20, G7, also, of course, the International Labour Organization, World Health Organization, the regional banks, and we sent a letter to all of them. And that, we hope that at least has some impact and some effects. Yesterday, we had also a very, very interesting exchange with the World Health Organization, with the Director of Public Health in the World Health Organization, and also the Director of Health and Safety in ILO, precisely to see how can we better cooperate with the public health system as private sector. You know that in many countries, one of the problems that we have is the lack of resources in the health sector because of the disruption that this emergency has brought, and it's critically important that the capacities of the private sector, also the efforts of the private sector goes also in the direction of assuring basic needs in the supply chains. So that was also a very interesting exchange, and we are going to have some action out of it. All this material that we have been exchanging is at your disposal now in this platform, because all these exchanges have been recorded and the information from the presenters are available on our web page. You can check it out. But for us, and as Hiro was saying, what we realize is that sometimes we think that in Asia, well, this emergency started in China, then went to Europe, now it's going to Latin America and Africa surely, and we are very worried. But Farouk, yesterday in one of the exchanges, precisely asked, what about the situation in many countries in Asia? Because sometimes it seems like it's forgotten. And contrary to what many people think, you are having a strong disruptions, not just on the health and safety area, but also in the economic area, because you are depending very much in many countries of the purchase and the orders that are given from other areas of the world. And you are now looking at a disruption as you have never before. So we thought it was important to have regional exchange. And I just wanted to say that we as IOE are at your disposal to continue helping. We are fully operational as a team, and we will continue producing interesting material for you, which is relevant also for your daily activities. Please don't hesitate to count on us, on all the team of IOE for any help that we can give you. Thank you, and sorry if I took longer than Fonsi. By the way, Hiro, at 9 o'clock, I have a meeting with Tunsi Mduaba to prepare a possible decision of the ILO to postpone the International Labour Conference. So perhaps I will ask your forgiveness if I have to leave. Rita can do the sum up of the questions that are raised by the different participants. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Roberto. Thank you, Roberto. But good evening, Paul.
Good evening. How are you?
Before Roberto, you are leaving this webinar. Just let us know what happened about postponement or the canceling on ILC.
Well, we've been hearing rumours of the cancellation, and there's no surprise to that. And I think that possibly it's inevitable, given that
the spread of this disease, even if it's been contained in some countries, will not be over until we contain it in all countries so that it stops respreading. So I think we're in for a long ride, and I think we have to accept that some of our expectations for this year will not happen.
Yeah, but I would like to ask Robert what the current situation exactly. Yes. But this is not officially determined. That's my understanding. That's why I would like to know.
Officially, what happened is that there is a recommendation of the officers of the ILO, meaning by the officers Ntunsi Midwaba, Kathleen Pache, and the chair of the governing body, to postpone the conference to next year. Basically, this recommendation, which is also based on a document presented by the Director General, is going to be discussed at 10 o'clock today by a restricted committee, which is called the Screening Committee. If this recommendation is approved, this recommendation will be submitted next week to all the governing body members of the ILO. They will have to vote in favor or against, and if it's vote in favor, which is very likely, the conference will be postponed for next year. Basically, I'm trying to say there are many complexities, but that's what's going to happen.
Thank you, Robert, for your explanation. Okay, and Paul, floor is yours. Could you explain what happened in your country, in your federation?
Thank you, Hiro. The situation in New Zealand is now rapidly becoming the same situation as every country. We have on the first slide the date where that number 283 is now 385 as of this afternoon. So we are going up in a hurry. New Zealand has been in a lockdown, as many countries are, since Wednesday. Only essential businesses can operate, so people can only go out of their houses to go to the supermarket or the doctors or the pharmacy. Pretty much everybody who can is working from home. There are many businesses now closing, many people are being laid off. The big things that we're trying to do now is that we have now been successful with the government in creating one central source of information, and in fact at the end of this presentation are the website links for anybody that's interested to what New Zealand is doing in relation to all the information and support that is going on. But Business New Zealand, the important thing also is that the employers organisation, Business New Zealand, is a very much part of the government's response to managing this. We are now designated as an essential business, and we are now working literally round the clock with call centres from our regional operations, as well as directly, like myself and with Kirk and others, working with government officials during the day and ministers to work out what the policy responses should be. So the employers organisation is right in the middle of this whole management process, I think is the first point to make, and it's a really kind of important process that we are part of. If we just look at a couple of graphs that are the next two slides, I just go through very quickly. This is the same profile we're seeing in every country, which is the growth in the rate of the number of cases in the country is rapidly growing, exponentially growing by the day. If we go to the next slide, this is today's graph. The number of new cases per day is going up, and even though we only have 385 cases, even Italy only had one case at one point. And so we are rapidly expanding. Even with the close down and lockdown, we are hoping that we will slow that rate of growth down. And what we are saying to the country is that the more stringent measures that you take to lock down and stop people from associating with each other are going to be the more successful measures, as we have seen, for instance, with China, where their lockdown measures have resulted in them looking like they're past their peak. The issue for China, of course, is having got past their peak, if they open their borders, they don't want to reopen that gate. So we are now in the process of working with and talking to everybody to say we all have to do something similar to make sure that we all slow it down and stamp this thing out. If we go to the next slide. Next slide. Yep. We had an alert system which was only developed very recently. In fact, it was developed so recently that when it was first announced on the 23rd of February, which was like Monday, we were already at level 2. And on Wednesday, it was announced that we were going, sorry, it was Monday, it was announced we were already at level 2 and we were going to level 3 on Wednesday and then level 4. Basically, what the government said was we have belatedly instituted a system that recognises the various stages of progress. It will serve us in the future, I guess, but at this stage, we are now already at level 4, which means we're in full lockdown. You can see these slides in their detail later. If we go to the next slide. We have long had, since the SARS outbreak in 2009 or thereabouts, we have had a pandemic action plan which has it at various levels of action. It's a very big document. Again, there's a link at the end of this presentation to it, so if you want to see it, you can. But if you go to the next slide, plan for it, prepare it, keep it out. If we go to the next slide, we're at the stage that's highlighted. We're at stamp it out, which is we already have it and it's already spreading. And what's more, it's not only spreading from the number of cases that have been brought into the country by people coming home, which is 90% of them. It is now beginning to spread because those people who have come home are infecting people already at home. So we are now at the stamp it out stage, but we have to then progress through getting through to recognizing that getting past the peak of the current stage of the virus is in fact only stage 1, because we have to accept that when we start to relax the controls on stage 1, there is a risk of reinfection by people who are starting to move again, who are still infected, who have not yet come to the surface. There may be people coming into the country if we relax the borders. There may be other things. So manage it is about making sure we are prepared for the second wave. And that's something I think that we would portray to everybody who's not already thinking about this. There will be a second wave. Can we go to the next slide, please? So getting past the second wave is basically getting onto the recovery stage, which is making sure that there's still a workforce to recover from. The big thing, the big first reaction we're seeing in New Zealand, and I guess many countries have much the same problem, is that the first issue is I can't manage, I will have to lay my staff off or close my business. What that does is put lots of people onto the unemployment heap, and they have to be re-recruited. If the country is going to recover, they have to be re-recruited. And so one of the things that the New Zealand government is focused on is trying to keep the employment relationship alive as much as possible, if not the employment itself alive as much as possible. And to that end, if we go to the next slide, the big issue right now is a support for business process. So recognizing that the government will always continue, as long as the government's not bankrupt, the government will always continue to support the public sector. The private sector, which has to earn its own money, is the one always most affected by these sorts of things. And so what the government is doing is using two things. One is we have a very low debt to GDP ratio, which means we have a lot of headroom to borrow money. And that's what the government's doing right now, to create a lot of cash to put back into supporting business to stay alive. And so it's putting roughly 4% of GDP, at least right now, back into support packages for business that cover things like covering wages and leave, the employment prospects of people, making sure that businesses have some relief in terms of cash and cash flow, tax and cash flow relief, and putting a lot more investment into the health sector, of course, because that's going to be needed for a lot longer to come. If we go to the next slide. So in terms of the subsidies, and I won't go through the details of these because you can read them later. Part of the package is a wage subsidy, which basically puts money into businesses' pockets they can then give to employees to keep them paid, even though there's no cash coming into the business. And as you can see, we started off by applying it to only some businesses, but as of 2 days ago, it's now applicable to all businesses at any level. So basically, every business can apply for a subsidy for all of its employees to help pay the wages of people who otherwise have got no work. If we go to the next slide. There are also situations where people can't work because they're sick and the company can't pay them. So there's a second level of subsidy which is going to help pay for people who have to take time off to go home, either because they've already caught the virus themselves or they're caring for people at home, for instance, who have caught the virus and they can't go back to work because they're isolated. So this will help them, again, at much the same level as the business subsidy, pay the wages or pay part of the wages of people who have got to stay home and can't work, even if they want to. Next slide, thanks. The rates that are being paid are basically the same rates as that we would pay to people who are unemployed, so or who are on leave without leave, on parental leave. So we are basically saying we have to have an index, or we have to have a relative value of things, and so people who can't work are being subsidized to the extent that unemployed people would be paid. What we're encouraging employers to do is to top those wages up as much as they can, to as close as they can to their normal wages. Where obviously a lot of employers can't do that. Tourism, restaurants, for instance, who have no customers, have no money coming in, so their level of ability to subsidize is much capped at the level of subsidy. Other businesses with a lot of reserves and things have some capacity to pay more than that, and they are, and they will. But it's basically a bottom line proposition that says nobody should have nothing, and that's important right now. Next slide. So there's even past the employee subsidy measures, there's a whole lot of other things that are being done for business too, which the government's things. The banks, for instance, are giving mortgage holidays to everybody. So be it householders or businesses, they're stopping the interest rate payments for the next 6 months. That doesn't mean they won't have to be paid later, but there will be a managed process for that. Landlords have been had their rents frozen, so they can't put their rents up in the meantime. The banks and the central bank will be giving business loans to help infrastructure and business maintenance costs, not just wage costs, which the other ones think were about, but the business infrastructure costs can be subsidized up to quite considerable levels. Tax thresholds have been changed, and I won't go into the details, but the fact that you can shift the tax thresholds up so that people don't have to pay their tax as early or as often is important to the cash flow of businesses. Likewise, the depreciation side of accounting is going to make it a lot easier and a lot less painful for businesses in terms of what they have to pay in tax at the end of the year. And also in terms of things like social assistance, peculiar to New Zealand, the hours test on the income works tax credit is simply a factor where anybody who has a family can get a payment provided that they have work. The work hours test is you have to have at least 30 hours. That's been dropped. So basically anybody who has a family can now claim that credit. So there's a lot of extra assistance going into families and businesses as well as employees that is designed to keep everything alive as much as we possibly can. Next slide, please. So the last slide is basically, if anybody wants to see what New Zealand's doing in much more detail, these two websites give everything. There's one central website, the COVID site is there for pretty much everything, but overlying that, New Zealand has long had a pandemic action plan, which is a very long document, it's 100 and 200 pages or something or other, but the essence of it is that we are thinking about how we would manage one of these things, and we are working to a plan. It's a terrifying prospect. It's a hard thing to do. We're all actually still quite worried at a family level as well as a business level. but at least we have a plan, and I think that's the key message, I think, for everybody. So I'll leave it there.
Thanks. Hero, your mic is off.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I press the button now. Quick question to Paul. And government of Japan has a huge debt in the public sector. And how is the situation in New Zealand? Because I realize you have introduced comprehensive measure which need have a big financial burden at the government.
Yep.
I would like to know that.
Well, New Zealand is very lucky because we are starting into this process with a very low debt to GDP ratio, roughly 20%. So in that sense, we have a lot of room to borrow money without getting ourselves into too much trouble. So this government has been able to create a lot of cash quite quickly because of that low debt to GDP ratio. For countries like Japan, which have a high debt to GDP ratio, the struggle will be, frankly, quite hard, a lot harder. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for explanation. And that's why I believe not all countries are able to, introduce the measure like New Zealand.
No, that's true.
That's
true. We're in a lucky position. We're in a very lucky position to be able to cope.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. I would like to pass on Stephen.
Okay. Thank you, Hero.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. Basically, when I did this slide, it was one day before our resilience package, and just for the information for all of you, we just got a 55 billion package to address the COVID-19 pandemic, which was announced in yesterday's parliament. I think the businesses are very excited about it. There's wages support and other business measures. Likewise, the individuals are also look into. Can you move on to the next slides? Okay, basically what happened here is that in Singapore, okay, hello. Okay. Okay, I think I'll pause it for a while. Can I continue? Hello. Yes, okay, now we started off with the business continuity planning. I think comes in immediately after Chinese New Year, which is actually the first week of February. Now today, unfortunately, we have 683 cases, charged, and unfortunately, we have 2 deaths. One is overseas and one is local. Now, we have closed our borders in terms of very restricted movements between outside. So that's the reason why we stimulus package by the government. Basically, at the end of the day, it's to basically ensure that the workers' jobs are protected as much as possible. We need the employers to basically keep the workers under employment as much as possible, even though there's some retrenchment exercise going on. And the other thing is basically to protect livelihood. And the last point, which I think most of us, which I don't really see in most countries, except we are doing it is that we try to build resiliencies over this period and so on. So if you look at it, what have we done? First, I would like to actually address it from our federation perspective. We have started off, we are also any business, we are also any organization. We need to make sure that at the end of the day, there's a business continuity plan adopted by us before we actually go out and advocating for our members. So we have a team A and B on 2 different locations and 2 different teams, so that at any one time, should we be hit by the virus, we still have members of our colleagues to basically serve the business community. I think that's important. The other thing is also we have started cross-training our staff so that we cover each other in terms of job roles and duties. Obviously, needless to say, we also make sure that our staff understand infection control and good personal hygiene, and we advocate that to our members. Next slide. Next slide. Hello. Okay, now the challenges faced by the SME, which I think Paul has mentioned, obviously financial condition. They also have in Singapore, we also have the issue of some manpower because we rely heavily on foreign manpower. Across the causeway, Malaysia, we are talking about 300,000 workers that comes into Singapore day in, day out, or on a monthly basis. Okay, so we also have to worry about that when Malaysia closed their borders to us. We have a hard time trying to actually contain the workers, and those that we manage to find accommodation for them as well. Now, the other thing that we also trying to push across in times like this is the digital transformation, which I think all of you have seen. Overnight, all of us start to telework. All of us overnight start to embrace technology, work on flexible work arrangement. We use technology to help us to basically stay home, work from home, and likewise try to distance ourselves as well. So not to forget all this, we also have to look at the data security aspects of it, and by companies, the lack of funding, which I think now is being resolved one way or another. We hope that the companies will come forward, work closely with us and the other government agencies to basically tap onto the funding to help them. Obviously, not to mention at this time of the year, whereby medical costs and medical supplies are on the rise because of over demand and limited supply. And also in this time of ours, in Singapore, we still business as usual, except that we don't move too much across the borders. We do not have a lockdown yet. We still operate with social distancing and so on. And for those who are infected and come in contact with infected personnel, they are basically on LOA, leave of absence, and stay home notice. Next slide, please. Next slide. Now, I think these are the things that I mentioned earlier on. We are not going to scale back on training, upgrading. We are not going to lose employee because of LOA and quarantine. We look at different ways of doing it. And again, we are not going to erode our value proposition to our clients for those businesses who continue to operate. And more importantly, let's not forget about business transformation and human capital development. Next slide. Now, the next slide basically we are looking at is to basically work with the companies to basically hold the staff, and reason being is that our government has come with job support credit. That was the 1 month ago. Now we have wages support. I think for the very badly hit sectors like the aviation, it's up to 75% wages support. I think it's similar to New Zealand. I would not get into the detail quantum, but there's wages support into this sector. Even the least hit sectors are getting something like 25%. Now, rental subsidy coming from the government, buildings and so on, with some private sector coming in, you're talking about 2-3 months of rental upfront wave. I think that's something very good. SNAF, basically we work with our counterpart NTUC to basically look at 5 priority sectors, as I mentioned, the tourism, travel, mines, airport transport, and attractions. These are the sectors badly hit. Singapore rely heavily on these 5 sectors because of our contribution to the GDP. Again, what happened to the excess manpower in certain sectors? The Ministry of Manpower has worked closely with us, it offered feedback, and started to do what we call rotational of manpowers, which means a particular foreign worker in a particular sector is being not used, being deployed to a sector that's needed. Obviously, there'll be some upgrading skills, but at least there's some manpower that can be redeployed. So we offer that flexibility coordinated by the Ministry of Manpower. Now, the other thing that we look at it is, now we always look at things like overnight, we have thousands of people who need to stay at home, leave of absence or stay home notice because they can't contact with people with infection and ended up in hospital. So we are not sure. So we quarantine for 14 days. So we work very closely with the chalets, the hotels, to actually house them, to do what we call a step down kind of housing for those critically ill will be landed up in the hospitals. Now, the next thing that I mentioned, I think is happening to most of the companies in the world is talking about telework, and we have sent out advisories to companies to how to handle them, to handle the staff, especially they are on LOA and SHN. We do not want to stigmatize them, and basically we want to make sure that unfortunately they are being infected. Now, needless to say, in this context, we started off doing a lot of dialogues, but I think the last 2 months, in fact, the last 1 month, we stepped down to basically do webinar. For reason is because of the social distancing, and we are not allowed to congregate 200 people in a room. Okay, so we have started to do webinar, so on, so that a certain level of distancing is being embraced. Thank you. Next slide. Okay, this slide basically talks about KBD development and what SNAF actually offer to our members. We have decided to do what we call interest-free deferred payment for our membership. Employers who have difficulty will write into us for interest-free defer membership payment. As I stated in the slide, it's 2 months. This morning, just got a green light from our president. We go as far as 6 months defer payment for our membership. We want to continue to serve them. We know their hardship. For those who are on hardship, they will have to write into us, and we will extend that. Likewise, for training, we have decided not to pick up the payment before training. We extend a 1 month payment terms for them on a need basis. Now, we work closely with the government. As mentioned, the government is very interested to get the people to continue training and upgrade themselves. We have managed to get the advanced course fees funding and absentee payroll, and that will be effective 1st May 2020. Okay, we continue to do advisory calls for members who need to call in and basically ask for advisory on matters of staff, foreign workers, and even for that matter, how to keep yourself sane while working from home. Okay, next slide. Now, not to forget, I think we do have a lot of freelancers, especially my freelance trainer. We were quite badly hit for a month until now things start to pick up a bit. And also the people who are in the gig economy. Our budget actually addresses people in this group, which we classified them as self-employed personnel, SEP. So the government has gone ahead with some allowance for them, in the sense that they are giving $1,000 a month for people who are on regular SEP, and because of the COVID-19, their salary are badly hit. So what SNAF offers is that we offer advisory, we also do a bit of training, and we offer them to do some consultancy for us as well. Next slide, please. Okay, that's all I have. Anything, you can drop me an email. I'll be most glad to basically provide more information. Basically, I would like to stop here. Any questions or even down later on for the roundtable?
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen, for but the time is very limited, and just the chance.
Steven, if you can mute yourself, Steven.
Yes, I'm here.
Steve. Please, someone's name, please.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Link something, please. Floor is yours.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody around Asia, and of course, Rita, I believe there is still morning. So, Hero, it's my turn, is it?
We can hear you.
We hear you.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, we can. Please
Yes, we can.
continue.
Okay, perhaps you start with our slide from MEF. Do you receive our slide, Rita?
Yes, Elodie, can you put on the next slide, please?
Yeah, I'm not sure whether you received our slide sent by Ms. Yuan.
Yes. Elodie, the next slide.
Okay.
Thank you.
We can start straight away. Perhaps you go to the second slide. Yeah. Go to the second slide straight away. Slide number 2. So this is basically the situation pre-COVID-19, where our economy is not performing that very well because we have a particular problem with the political situation in the country, and perhaps, you know, from 4.3, now we are actually lowering our GDP to a lower figure. Of course, the government is still quite optimistic, but I think that is too high, 3.2 to 4.2%. Whereas the other independent research houses even talk about 2.5% GDP forecast for 2020. Next, please. Next slide, please. This is just to share the number of cases in Malaysia. It is, I would say, pretty high currently at more than 2,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19. And every day we're talking about slightly more than 200 new cases. And of course, we quite have a number of people that are already cured, about 215 of them currently. But of course, we have a higher number of total death in the country. 23, I believe this is the highest in the ASEAN region. And of course, we also have people who are in the intensive care unit, about 45 of them. And all this kind of thing, of course, worries the government and also the public. And of course, we are taking the necessary steps to make sure that we practice what we call it as social distancing, so that we are able to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Next, please. And of course, you know, when the government actually come up with a stimulus package on 27 February. The government allocated about 20 billion ringgit to actually spur up the economy. And of course, we are trying to actually encourage what we call it as trying to mitigate the impact of the COVID-19 outbreak. And this means that a number of things need to be restructured, especially the loans. And also, the government had allowed companies to reassess their income tax payment estimation. And this also actually, government actually encouraged the importation of PPEs. And of course, the government do it through the tax deduction. And of course, for the employers that are very much hardly hit by COVID-19, especially the hotel sector and the tourism industry, the Human Resources Development Fund levy, there is a training levy, had been suspended for them for the next 6 months. And of course, some of the non-regular employees had been given a payout of 600 ringgit. These are the taxi drivers and also the Grab drivers, thing like that. Next, please. And of course, another part is basically where the government wanted to actually encourage the economic growth. So the employees' contribution had been reduced from 11 to 7%. So there is a 4% deduction on the contribution, but many of the employees are very much against this kind of policy in the sense that they say that this will reduce their old age savings. But of course, employees that are reluctant to reduce their contribution to the EPF or to the Provident Fund will have the opportunity to actually go back to the 11% by filling up certain form and submit it to the EPF through the employers. Yeah? And of course, the other part is the government wanted to promote quality investment, which I think may not be realistic at this time of period. Next, please. And the situation is quite bad in Malaysia. That's why on the 17th or 16th of March, the Prime Minister announced what we call it as movement control order. This is basically a partial lockdown, not a complete lockdown, where the government announced that from 18 March to 31st March, then there will be movement control order in the sense that only certain essential industries are allowed to operate, and also some of the support services to essential industries are allowed to operate. But even that also not on full strength, about 50% of the staff strength. And of course, the other part, the government also mentioned about trying to assist employees that are not able to work during the movement control order. But of course, the part that is a bit disturbing to the employers is basically they say that the unpaid leave must be at least 30 days before you actually are entitled to claim for the employment retention program. Next, please. And the major issue that employees are facing is basically on whether there should be full pay during the movement control order. Of course, the government had said that through the Ministry of Human Resources that employers must pay full wages during this period. But of course, MEF is not agreeable to that and had taken the stand to say that no, basically we stick to the principle that if there is no work, there shouldn't be any pay. But of course, MEF tried to come up with what we call it as a win-win situation. And in our advice to the members, actually, we suggested to the members that they should ask the employees to take annual leave for up to 5 days, or if there is no annual leave balance, then the employee should take unpaid leave. And the rest of the days, remaining 9 days, must be paid by the employers. And our members are quite, I would say, acceptable or receptive to this idea. And many of them had actually followed our advice. Next, please. And of course, the main important part here is basically, our main worry will be if this situation goes on, the movement control order goes on, then there will be a real reduction of the GDP, and this Malaysian Institute of Economic Research, which is an independent body, had actually forecasted that for the 2020, the GDP will shrink by about 2.9% as compared to 2019. So it means that our GDP growth for 2020 may be well below 2% for this period. And the main worry also will be this may result in what we call it as a massive layoff, where 2.4 million employees may lose their job. And of course, this is something that we try to avoid as MEF, and we had always made a presentation to the government to say that employers in the private sector must be assisted so that we are able to retain the employees as long as possible, so that at the end of the day, the employees are still having a job to look at after the COVID-19 period. Next, please. And of course, just very recently, on the 25th of March, the government had announced the second movement control order, where the period was extended or is extended to April 14. And of course, in this kind of situation, talking about the movement control order itself, some experts say that to have the lockdown or shutdown for 4 weeks, it may be too short and may not be able to actually control the spread of COVID-19. So some of them even said that this possibly can be or maybe extended for another period of 2 weeks or 4 weeks from the end of 14 April. And of course, together with this second announcement on the movement control order, the government also had announced a bit of a breather for businesses and individuals having bank loan, to say that their loans will be given moratorium of 6 months. But of course, the issue here is that when you say moratorium, is basically, are you being still charged with the interest, or interests are really being waived? Initially, the bank are saying that, okay, look, you still have to pay your interest during the moratorium period, but there is a lot of pressure from the public, and even MEF had suggested to the Ministry of Finance to say that this should be a full moratorium where no interest should be charged for the 6-month period. And it seems to be positive in that some of the banks had stated to say that, yes, this 6-month moratorium will be without any penalty or without any interest to the borrowers. Next, please. And of course, if you look at some of the issues being faced by the travel industry and the hotels, basically, you can see that there is a big drop in the arrival of passengers. By the way, now with the movement control order, all flights from overseas are not allowed to land in Malaysia, except to bring in some of the Malaysians that are currently stranded overseas. And of course, the main carrier, Malaysia Airlines, predicted or recorded 60% flight cancellation. The same thing like AirAsia, 70% of the flights were cancelled. And Malindo also saw about 510 flights cancelled. And in the hotel industry, more than 190,000 room bookings had been cancelled. That was translated into about 75 million ringgit losses. Next, please. And of course, these are some of the things that have been done by the airlines in order to make themselves still being able to stand on their feet. And they are offering what they call it as no pay leave for their staff, even up to 3 months. Yeah? And some of them actually had cut the pay of their top executives. Yeah? And of course, this will be very much the thing in order that we basically will have to face, I think, for the time being. Next, please. And of course, this is some of the things that have been done by the airlines in order to make themselves still being able to stand on their feet. And they are offering what they call it as no pay leave for their staff, even up to 3 months. Yeah? And some of them actually had cut the pay of their top executives. Yeah? And of course, this will be very much the thing in order that we basically will have to face, I think, for the time being. Next, please. And of course, stimulus package 2, we are quite excited about this. In fact, as we speak now, the Prime Minister is presenting his stimulus package 2 to the public live, basically. And I was told that the second package is a much bigger package, amounting to no less than 250 billion ringgit. Yeah, and partly will go to the public for them to actually be assisted during this hard time. And of course, about 100 billion had been allocated to the businesses in order to assist them during this hard period. So hopefully, with these stimulus packages in store, we should be able to reduce retrenchment. And of course, we are very hopeful to say that the employers will be trying to maintain the number of their employees that they have. And MEF had always been working very much with the government in trying to make sure that businesses are assisted during this hard time. So I believe that is the end of the presentation. Thank you very much all.
Thank you, Datuk Samson, for your explanation. And I also believe this is another example which government have a big fiscal space. Okay, taking into account the less of the time available for that, I would like to give the floor to Faluk. Faluk, floor is yours.
Yes, Hero. Yeah, Hero. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Good afternoon to everyone. Let me straight away go into the presentation. My slide, please. Yeah, next one. Okay. So let me express in two ways. One is the social aspect. The other one is economic aspect. In terms of social aspect, you know, Bangladesh is a densely populated country. It's perhaps the most in the world. And we are now, in terms of corona, we are in stage 2. It means at the group level, it has not gone yet to community level. We have total 5 death cases. As of now, 44 infected cases. And we have tested few hundreds. And in quarantine, there are over 45,000 people in self-quarantine or self-isolation. You know, we have another limitation in terms of our literacy rate. 42 million people are illiterate. They don't understand much about the implications of spreading of this particular virus. And 51 million workers are working in the unregulated sector. Well, our weather is slightly hot and humid. Currently, it's about something around 27 degrees. And what happened? Over 150,000 expatriate workers, particularly from Europe and Italy, returned into Bangladesh in last 3 weeks. And unfortunately, we could keep a track of only 3% of them where they are now, and rest we have not been able to find out. They have mixed up with the total mass, with the total population in the society. So this is in nutshell the social aspect. In terms of economic aspect, the ADB has given an estimation of loss to $3 billion in short term. In short term means if the pandemic remains active in terms of until March 31, that is what is short term. Job loss will be over 900,000 workers. Meanwhile, in the R&D sector, our most prominent sector, as of 25th March, $2.5 billion worth amount of order has been cancelled by the buyers. And you know, each sector has different characteristics, like already mentioned by Samsuddin and others: hotel, transportation, construction, fish processing, and all other domestic sector. Each one of them have different criteria and different characteristics. And 85% of the enterprises are micro and small enterprises. and small businesses, day laborers will be mostly affected, and approximately their strength is about 20 million. Next, please. Well, as we can tell, Bangladesh is in double trap. That in one sense, when this particular epidemic started in China, we were shortage with supply of raw materials. Now China has recovered. It's in Europe and America where our main export destination is. So we cannot supply our products to Europe and America. So we are in a two-way trap from that aspect. We are trying to come up with lots of solutions, but then, you know, one size fits for all theory does not apply here. Each sector has its different dynamics and it works in a different way. In terms of other limitations, actually, though maybe we have 44 proven infected cases, but we do not know as to how many thousand or how many millions are really infected in that sense, because we do not have adequate testing facilities. We have very limited number of personal protective equipments, and for which the temporary and casual workers are most affected. We cannot really make any arrangement to test them. So if this particular pandemic, if it prolongs, there will be extremely devastating situation. Next, please. Now, let me come back to the measures taken by the government. On the 25th evening, our Prime Minister has given some declaration in terms of policy measures, fiscal packages. There will be some arrangement for feeding the most vulnerable people for next 6 months. In terms of fiscal measures, the necessary liquidity assets will be injected into the commercial banks worth about $450 million US, as against the initial demand of $2 billion. It is only for paying of the salaries of the workers. Meanwhile, our central bank has come up with some packages like, for example, the reverse repo rate system has been introduced for the treasury bills. Additional time has been allocated for realizing the export-import bills for next 6 months. It means there will be no additional interest counted for this delay payment or delay realization. And there has been another assurance from the government that there will be no disconnection of utility lines if the bills are not paid in time. Next, please. Okay, from Bangladesh Employers Federation, from the business, we, along with other chambers of commerce, we have taken a good number of steps. First of all, we are holding regular meetings. Earlier, it was physical meetings. Now, our country is on. I would say the whole country is in quarantine now for next 10 days, which started from yesterday. So now we are doing Skype meetings and online meetings. And then we also engaged a research firm to impact the assess of the coronavirus, which we did successfully. Then we are still conducting several meetings with our various stakeholders in order to get a real feedback from our industry in terms of damage, in terms of job loss. We prepared a very comprehensive proposal and submitted to the government. That proposal included various fiscal measures, monetary policy measures, and other policy support for next 6 months. Due to shortage of time, I am not going for in details of explaining those, but I'm sure you all can understand what all usual proposals that can be. Next, please. We have also publicated a handbook as a help guide for the workers of the industries in order to understand how to do social distancing, how to keep them away from getting affected by coronavirus. This we have done in a native language, in an easy term, following the WHO guidelines and ILO guidelines. so that it helps our workers, and particularly huge number of illiterate workers to understand. We have also, at our own initiative, we have also created a fund of worth initially $200,000. This is particularly in order to improve, import or procure personal protective equipment for the frontline doctors and healthcare givers, those who are testing our affected people. We have adequate shortage, as I already mentioned. So we are getting some around 10,000 equipments from China immediately. We have also organized health sanitizers and other preventive measures in our respective enterprises, though the enterprises are closed now, but then before closing, we already arranged soap, hand sanitizers, and de-insectifiers, etc., etc. And once it opens, if the situation improves, we will continue to do that. We are also arranging another fund worth about $50,000 for feeding the most vulnerable group, like the day workers, day laborers, small street shop vendors. Because of the quarantine situation now, they are all likely to starve because they only survive on their daily earnings. So in order to help them, we have created a special fund for about $50,000 as of now. These are all at the initiative of the private sector investors under the leadership of BF and the Chamber of Commerce. We are also trying our best in terms of awareness raising so that people remain at home, people don't go out for gossiping or for unnecessary loitering in the market areas. Next, please. The lesson learned. I think it's too early to be conclusive. We are seeing, we are observing, and from China, the lesson that we have learned, that remain fully quarantined and maintain a normal life. No panic should come in, and of course, social distancing is a big experience that we have learned from China, and other experience maybe we can learn as we pass on. And we only hope that it does not prolong for a long time, and we can recover as early as possible from that shock. But then the overall impact will be as such so that the recovery might take a couple of years even. So this is in a nutshell about my assessments or my Federation's assessment. Thank you all.
Thank you, Farooq, for your explanation, and also with some conclusion and regarding a lesson learned. I would like to just pass on the new Maldives friend, Mr. Jalal Muhammad Ali. Could you just briefly to introduce yourself and to explain your experience at home?
عندي أروح ده غير أروح ميدا كيكولين ديلا نكتبوس إما يكون كذا أنا نجي أروح يبيهم أروح فين أروح
Hi, Mr. Yanan.
أنا نكونترول نكون
Hello.
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 All right. Hello. I'm here.
Hello, you.
Hi. It's okay.
Yes, we can hear you. Please, you may start.
I'm just going. I'm putting my presentation. I think you put in the wrong presentation.
You didn't send me the presentation, but do you have it?
I'm just sharing it. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just sharing it. You know. Just hold on for a second, yeah.
But just please introduce yourself, please. can you hear me?
I am the president of the Maldives National Federation of Maldivian Employers. I'm also the current president of the International Federation of Asian and Western Pacific Contractors Associations. Also the president of the Maldives National Association of Contractors. I'm here to present what we are doing here in the Maldives. First time with on a conference like this with IOE. Thank you very much for inviting me and accepting me on this dialogue with you. And I've been listening to all of you, and it's very interesting. You know, the current situation in the Maldives right now, so far we had a total of 13 cases of positive cases of COVID-19. 9 of them have recovered, and 9 of the nationality are all foreigners. The 13 are all foreigners. So far, no Maldivian has contracted COVID. Out of the 13, 8 are Italians. We have only 4 active cases right now. The last confirmed case in the Maldives was on 16th March. So we have had about 11 days of no positive cases in the country. The government and the private sector, I think, and the people of this country are doing a very good job. This is the second week we have been in a kind of lockdown. The government of Maldives closed on 19th March. And all travelers except those booked as tourists to resorts have been quarantined till today. And today all our borders closed because there will be no on-arrival visa from today. A lot of businessmen have donated or given temporarily their resorts, the beautiful resorts. I have also donated one of my islands. That was the first island that was made a quarantine facility, which is near the capital city. An island that was the first one that was made a quarantine facility, and it was mine. So I think the Maldives started getting ready ahead of the game, like unlike many other countries. The government set the ball rolling from January 6th, and the first facility, the quarantine facility, was in place by the end of January. So I think, and we also have got focal points in each quarantine facility. Any Maldivian coming from overseas, they have to go into a 14-day quarantine to one of these resorts for 14 days. So that's how. And we also have one of the private sector business people have given to the government free of charge one of the biggest hospital in the country. One of the state, the hospital is a state-of-the-art hospital for a 200-bed ICU facility. And we have brought imported ventilators from overseas, face masks, testing kits, everything, and we have enough stock in the country right now, and we are building it up in case things go wrong. But so far, so good. So far, we have been very lucky to contain this to this extent. The first case in the country was confirmed on 7th of March. The Health Protection Authority created a hotline 1676 and sent daily updates on all the mobile telephones. Any hotel or resort that was reporting a case was in most of the cases via one island, one resort. So we closed any resort reporting a case would be closed and quarantined. And then we took out the positive case out of the island and sent them to other closed in the country on 9th to confirm on 9th March. Temporary ban on travelers from Bangladesh from 9th March. Temporarily closed some of the resorts, and today we have no tourists coming. So out of the 150 resorts, 50 resorts, so one and resorts are already closed. A state of health emergency was declared for 30 days on 12th March, and any kind of excursion, local or foreign, was banned from 13th March. Bank of Maldives announced the financial package on 15th March, And schools closure was also started from 15 March and extended till the first week of next month. Guest houses and city hotels throughout the country are closed. No Airbnb. Government subsidized utilities on 19 March with 40% discounts on electricity bills and 30% discounts on water bills. All restaurants and food outlets are closed. And also yesterday the government extended the government closure for another week from 26th March. So we will be again closed till 6th April. Now, from today, there are no foreign tourists coming into the country. So the government has asked all the hotels, whoever there is, from the time the last guest leaves, all the staff should remain 14 days on each of these islands so that they have a 14-day quarantine as well. Unless the disease is controlled globally, we cannot say it will not spread in the Maldives, however good we are doing. Our Bank of Maldives, which is the main bank in the country, has announced a moratorium of all loan payments, allowing a repayment by 6 months, which is added to the chain. Utility bills, as I said, President announced that today or tomorrow we are going to have a huge slashing off on the internet pricing. The government also announced the Maldivian rupiah 2.5 billion. Our rupiah to the dollar is about 15, so which is about $180 million economic package. Our third industry is the fisheries. So loan scheme for wild tuna export companies has been established. Farming government plans to make a trading platform through the state trading organization to enable sales for agricultural projects. And all the repayment of student loans have been postponed for another 6 months. Also, government established economic packages for tourism facility operators on condition that our local Maldivians will not lose their jobs. So to bridge the gap, they have asked the Bank of Maldives to provide a $2 million US dollar loan to each facility immediately. SME and homeowners with housing loans can use the economic package to reduce the burden on the people who live on rent. Small businesses who operate without loans can apply for economic packages. The state trading organization assured the availability. So this is on food security. We have shipments coming by the 5th of April. I mean, everything is imported in this country. We are 1,500 miles in length and 500 miles width, 98,000 square kilometers of water in this country, 1,200 islands. So it is a logistical nightmare to provide food to all these places. But the government has decided to put 10 months food security in the country. So we have ships coming from across the globe with 10 months rice, flour, and sugar and other stuff coming in. The oil stocks have been replenished by the government, and all the private sector and the government have got together and filled up all the tanks. So we have enough fuel for the country for the next 6 months. Currency swap transactions with India, we had a $400 million swap agreement. So in order to maintain the dollar, value, the rupiah value to the dollar, so that there's no devaluation, the central bank has pumped in $150 million into the system. All the Maldivian NGOs and the opposition had the opportunity to assist the COVID-19 situation. And we have gone into lockdown. People cannot enter Maldives. Government housing scheme flat rents also postponed for 6 months. The government also plans to invest a lot more on fisheries storage package so that farming and fisheries can be a priority, because we are totally dependent on tourism. Also, the first ship of a new company called Maldives State Shipping Company has been established, and our first ship will arrive in the Maldives on the 30th, so that we are not dependent on foreign or other, shipping companies that can, hijack our system. So the government is taking control of that situation as well. The World Bank has just granted us $10 million. OPEC, AIIB, ADB, government of Maldives is in discussion with these parties for aid. If the anticipated aid from foreign countries don't materialize, government assures financial institutions like ADB, World Bank, and IDB will be our alternatives.
Could you explain briefly, because time is already,
Yes. I think others took a lot more time than me, so that's why I will just, I'll just be fast track, So the current picture in the Maldives is tourism is the largest sector. Currently 50 resorts closed. So the largest loan currently is from China, and we have requested China and the Chinese president to give us more relaxed loan payment terms. We are building a huge bridge with the Indian aid, but the government has decided to continue with all the public infrastructure projects. We have about 10 billion worth of PSF. This is about, in US dollars terms, it is about $800 million worth of projects. And so the construction industry will be active so that there is money flowing into the country, and there will be enough to pay the wages and other things, and the small and medium enterprises will be running. Steps taken, as the National Federation and also the National Contractors Association. I've been in touch with the President, the Minister of Finance. I'm part of also the core group that is making decisions on the economic side of it. I met all the bankers, and I've been meeting through. We have written to all the relevant financial institutions and stakeholder ministries to relax everything. But we are aware how millions are getting unemployed in the world. Economic packages, of course, will help. So our president and our cabinet expects this to last for about 6 months. And we hope that if things go well, we will be able to have our tourism back in the first quarter of 2021. The effects of the pandemic is expected to stretch at least for a year. So let us see, how things go, and we all work together. Thank you very much, and wishing you all good health.
Okay, thank you for your explanation. And but I fully understand tourism industry hardest hit in your country. But I hope, we hope you will recover in the near future. But and taking account lots of most countries have introduced travel ban and entry restriction, that it's big challenge for you. Okay, thank you for all. And but maybe we would like to have at least 1 or 2 or 3 questions from the other participants. Rita, can you hear me?
So, yes, I can hear you. So we have one question from Stephen, and that's direct to Datuk from Malaysia. So he wanted to know whether Malaysia will be locked. Do you think that Malaysia will be locked down beyond 14th of April? Datuk, are you with us?
Datuk is seen talking over cell phone.
Okay.
Cell phone.
Oh, yes.
But
okay.
Datuk, something. Are you with us?
I think he's on a call at the moment. So, yes. Oh, hello.
So sorry. Yeah, so sorry.
Have you listened to the question?
So there's a question directed to you.
There's
a question directed to you is, do you think that the lockdown in Malaysia will go beyond the 14th of April?
I believe the lockdown will go beyond 14th of April. Some experts say that it's going to be additional 2 weeks or 4 weeks from the 14th of April. And this is, of course, causing a lot of concern to the employers. But based on the stimulus package that was announced today, for the lockdown period, the government is going to assist the employers by paying 600 ringgit per month for employees below 4,000 ringgit. And of course, a lot of conditions attached to it. One is to say that the employees must suffer a loss of revenue of more than 50% from January 2020. And of course, my main worry will be this kind of thing will cause a lot of confusion in the public, because it doesn't say anything about whether the employer is still able to or should be paying wages during the movement control order period. And if there is the case, then the employee is getting extra pay of 600 ringgit per month, which I don't think is fair. Yeah?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there any more questions from the other participants?
That's the only one we received.
Okay.
Sorry, Hero, if you let me all the recording of this presentation and all the PowerPoints will be available on our website, which is just on shown right now. So please, I invite you participants to visit that website after this conference. Thanks, Hero. The floor is back to you.
Thank you, Rita. And the question raised by Sieve is that in the same challenge in now European country has faced, because they have so to speak Schengen treaty, free movement and the people and workers, but they have now locked the country. That's why in migration, migrant workers are not able to work across the border, and in particular, and seasonal workers engaged in the agriculture sector are not able to work abroad. That we are facing in this kind of a situation. But the inland and island country like Japan, don't have the problem, but still we always rely on the intern from surrounding countries, in particular in the agriculture and fishery industry, in the some other industry. Also, they have some had hit without workers engaging their activities. Also, we Japanese industry heavily rely on the supplies from China. That's why in some automobile industry suspended their operation. Also in other industry, and we have already strongly affected. That's why, and we are very much pleased know, and Chinese started and resume their operation gradually. I hope they will start. They will going to go back to business as usual. In this regard, I would like to have any comments or a question from the Penny from the China. Penny, are you with us?
Hi, sorry, Hero. We have to wrap up soon because
yes, I'm here. Yeah.
Yes, I know, but I want to just have
not
comment.
not the question. Actually, I got a lot of lessons from the participants, especially how to support the business. For us, our CEC, we just fully support our members to resume the operation of business. we take many measures. Also, we give some new views for our member company. Next week, we have a national teleconference. Will focus on the theme of the digital future of enterprise, focus on how enterprise can make use of digital technology to help resume work and production after the epidemic, and how to expand the new situation by taking the express train of digital infrastructure. And also we will focus on how can enterprise embrace the digital future of build their growth mode, especially business model and management model. You know, we hope can support our enterprise can operate just focus on the future of work, because we get the lesson from this epidemic event. The enterprise based on the technology or internet doesn't affect really much, but the traditional manufacturer, especially SME, has a lot of impact. So we push the enterprise to the new phase of technology-driven production mode. So I think most our member company already resume work almost 100%. Just some SME, because it's difficult to recruit the workers, especially migrant worker, because still in control, you know, must have the green code from your mobile. If you have the green code, you can move freely. But if you from the some specific area like Wuhan, not the green code is not available. You need some test or some screen like this. So it's the situation, yeah, now in China. But we still care about the, how to say, the rebound of the some import cases. For the local case, the whole China today only one case. It's one case is related with some import case. So now it's controlled very well. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Pei. Thank you for your explanation. It's time to wrap up this session, and but it doesn't make sense for me to summarize what we have learned today. As Lita told us, you can access IOE COVID web page. You can have get a PowerPoint slide as well as a recording during this web meeting. Also, taking this opportunity, I would like to remind you, and official announcement of the cancellation of ILC will be at bit of April. That is the latest. That's my announcement. You can hear this news through either through your government or IOE communication. Okay, thank you for your. Thank you for IOE Secretary. Okay.
Thank you, Hiro, for sharing, and thank you for all the participants for attending
Yeah,
this
thank
conference.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Take care and
Thank you,
be
everyone.
safe. Thank you.
You
Bye.
stay
Mm.
safe.
Bye.
Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Okay.
you. Bye. Nothing.
Mm.
Hero, bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye. Bye.
Nice to see you all. Mm.
Okay.
Penny.
Yeah. Thank you.
Leave meeting. Leave meeting is.
Hello,
Thank
Paul.
you.
Hello. I'm trying to. I don't
Yeah,
even know how to
Paul,
deal
you're
with it.
getting younger.
Yeah, exactly. How are you, Penny?
Fine. Yeah, hope to see you next year maybe.
Next time we have an ILC, I'll see
Yeah.
you absolutely. And
Yeah,
Hero.
maybe next year.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hope you
Thank you,
got.
Hero.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Hope you got lots.
Thank you, everyone.
Hope you got lots of sake left in the house.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. Yeah,
See
yeah.
you.
Thank you. Yeah.
See you.
See you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Lita.
I don't know how to get out of this.
Thank you, Hero. Thank you for cheering. And thank you for the speakers. Thank you, Paul.
See you.
Yes. Right. Have a great evening.
Yeah,
Good night.
good night. Have a nice day.
You too. Thank you.
This guy. Done.
So look, it's the best one. That's when it's like the sun and then the moon's in front of it. To the way I don't want it. The moon's the best one out of the moon and the sun. It's my two favourites.
Come on. Hello, darling. Where you been? I've been worried sick. Anything good about you two? Buses for playing up. Anyway, I'm here now. A dangerous state for kidney pie there, Mum.